Hey, everybody. Welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kirby. I am really excited about this kickoff to season 3. I got somebody who I've been really wanting to meet for a long time, and I actually reserved time. I did not seek her out until I had her on the podcast because A, I've heard so many wonderful things about her. B, I was so excited to talk shop with her. And what better way to do it on a delightful podcast and a season 3 premiere. I would like to welcome Shannon Full. She is the president and CEO of the Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo Chamber of Commerce. She's brand new to the area, and I'm super excited to have her on the show. Shannon, welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast.
Thank you, Patrick, and I am thrilled that I get to be the season premiere. So I was just saying, season premiere is it's the best spot, right? So thank you for the opportunity.
Loaded to bear. It's going to be fun. All right. So if people are scrolling through, they find themselves on Apple, they find themselves on YouTube, or wherever you find the official Do Good Better podcast. This sounds like an interesting show, but they don't really know who Shannon Full is. So from kind of a 5,000-foot view, who are you? What you do? How did you get here to our delightful area here in the Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo area?
Well, I am a passionate community developer, economic development, Chamber of Commerce leader. I've led a chamber for 21 years. People might say, why? I stumbled into this career. I had no idea even what a Chamber of Commerce was. Joined a chamber with an employer when I was 23, and then a year later was recruited into my first president and CEO job. Literally had no idea what I was doing, true baptism by fire, but have found a tremendous passion in this work. So I am one that loves to connect people, but really loves to be a solution-based strategist. So constantly looking for what are the greatest challenges in our community, what are the greatest challenges for individual businesses, even greatest challenges around individuals themselves. Where do they want to go? How can we help them get there? So this has been a love of mine now for over 20 years, which is crazy for me to say. And I love learning from everybody else. So I'm on 2 national boards. So around the country, I'm constantly gathering best practices, bringing them back here, bouncing them off great leaders like you in the community, and then seeing where we go.
Kind of fun, since you mentioned that you like challenges and coming up with solutions, to take a position in what appears to be the middle of a global pandemic. That had to be a specific challenge. And I know, like, if you switch jobs, you switch them for a bunch of reasons to get a really good opportunity. Pandemically speaking, that's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe me, even when we looked at the opportunity, when I brought it home to my husband and said, okay, we're going to take a look at what Fargo has to offer. We had a lot of discussions around, like, is this the right time? But oftentimes you don't get to choose the right time, right? It chooses you. So the opportunity chose us, and we said yes. But the pandemic has definitely added a little bit of challenge and a new perspective into taking on not just a new job, but moving a 5 and an 8-year-old to the community, learning a new community, new social infrastructure, right? We really my husband has 2 cousins that live here, but otherwise we know nobody here, right? So yeah, it's been a little challenging, but also a really good time.
I think one of the interesting perspectives are one of 2. It's either this pandemic is awful and nothing good can come of it, or this pandemic is awful and holy crap, what a bunch of great opportunities we do to have to either change things or tweak things, or look about where our values are and what we really need to keep, what we really need to go away. One of my favorite things about having you here is that I had wonderful insider baseball from a buddy of mine who knew you down in the Twin Cities, and specifically said you will enjoy her because she also, like you, is a disruptor of the norm. And one of the things that we always talk about here on the podcast is trying to blow up the concept of we've always done it that way. I would love your perspective on how COVID and the pandemic has allowed your disruptive nature, and I use that as a hell yeah high five because I appreciate that more than anything. How has that led you to sort of look at things a little bit differently and opportunistically, where others may sort of throw up their hands and say, we'll never be able to fix anything?
Yeah, so I couldn't agree more. I don't just thrive in kind of the world of disruption. It is like my inner core. So everything that I love to do, and I also see it as that hell yeah high five gets me really excited when I get to look at something and say, ooh, not to blow it up just for the sake of blowing it up, but truly for the intent of, how do we make this better? How do we have different perspectives brought to the table? How do we try to see this from a different lens? And so for me, that's kind of how I've led organizations for 20 years. It has always been in this kind of this purview of not even just continual improvement, but truly striving to be better, right? And so in doing that, it's actually made the pandemic a lot easier because I have that type of a viewpoint. As I mentioned, I'm on the one of our national boards. Our Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives has Chamber of Commerce executives all over the globe. So we even have chambers that are outside of the United States that are part of this. And the biggest thing that we're talking about is that the pandemic has turned chambers of commerce on their head. I mean, you think about even our chamber here in the Fargo-Moorhead area, we're known for these massive big events, right? Peyton Manning, Shaquille O'Neal, when we bring them in and have 3,000, 4,000 people that join us for this. And now we haven't been able to do that. So not only is that a big revenue source, it is a huge part of the value proposition of the organization itself. And so, but even some of our, what I would call our more critical program, that our continual program events that happen on a monthly basis are happen in person, right? Well, now they don't. And so I think there was a moment there of kind of a, crap, what do we do? Like, we're got to go virtual now. Are we going to lose all the connectivity? How do we have to do this differently? And what we've actually found over the course of a year is that although this was hard to do, there were numerous aspects of this that are very positive and will be critical for our success in the future. For instance, I believe we will always have a virtual component to our work in the future now, right? I mean, look at here, you were just saying, you've got people all over the globe that listen to the podcast, right? So we have to have more of that mindset of the positivity around how could we do the work that we're doing and allow others who are not physically here in the Fargo-Moorhead area to engage in the work that we're doing, be inspired by what we're doing. Those are the kinds of things that actually really excite me.
And almost that you get to use that then as a conduit to celebrate and showcase businesses who are chamber members to other people who might not be in the area, right? So if you're a business and you're part of your chamber and you're looking at their new sort of leadership going towards a more virtual setting that reaches more people, well, that's advantage for your business or your nonprofit if you're a member of your chamber as well. So you're now getting exposure to forward-thinking organizations and chambers who are looking to that future to say, this is never going to change. Our outreach is too good. Our interactions with others that we would have normally never gotten an opportunity to connect with, now have an opportunity to connect with. And I think maybe that goes into that series of change, right? It's terrifying. Typically, nonprofits especially kind of look at the change as going, oh God, now I got to convince a bunch of people that we need to do something different. Of the number of years you've been in chamber, which is typically a slow and steady, this is the always way we've always done it sort of mentality, right? I don't mean to cast generalities, but we kind of know that that's kind of the thing. How did you tackle pushback on innovation and change as somebody who's a disruptor? Because I think that's very relatable to a lot of either businesses or nonprofits who sort of want to get out of their own head and out of their own way, but they can't get past the fact like, I'm going to get pushback. Any tips and tricks on that?
Yeah, so I think of a few different things. One is really knowing yourself and your strengths really, really well, right? So I know that I am a visionary leader. So What I have also learned is that there are cultures and climates and certain organizations, I will not be a fit in those organizations, right? So even when I've had the great pleasure of leading chambers now in Minnesota and Florida, in Iowa, Wisconsin, and North Dakota. And people now say, yeah, Shannon, why, some chamber execs stay in the role for 25, 30 years, right? They're in the same chamber. I think that's great too, because that culture can be, as long as it remains innovative and the leadership thinks that way. For me, my organizational changes and where I've gone have always been to organizations that were seeking a disruptive mindset, that were seeking catalytic leadership. So the culture in and of itself, but even when I'm bringing ideas to the table, this is a fascinating thing, right? So you pick something up from another community, you can't just assume that you can pick it up, drop it into the Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo area and hope that it's going to work, right? So part of it is just really that active listening and figuring out the ecosystem. And I would say it's a holistic look at the ecosystem, not just the chamber members, right? I'm a big one that says membership's really important. We love our chamber members. We love those companies that support us. But the work that we do has far greater impact on the community and on businesses that are not members of the chamber. So we have to make sure that as we're making decisions, we're keeping in mind what's important to our members, but also where do we want to go in the long run. I've also found that really, for me, part of the success has been finding champions within the organization that are not me, right? So how do we make this their idea, but much more around how do I inspire and empower other leaders to help carry the message and bring a common goal or a common vision to light. So those are some of the things that I've looked at as these are ways that we can influence change in a way that and that people see it as one of the first things I did when I came on December 1st. My very first week was all of my internal team, right? But really challenging them on what scares you, what excites you, what motivates you. If you were in my chair and had the magic wand, what would you do? If we didn't have a budget or any barriers to our resources, what kind of things? So, because I think oftentimes we get lost in, we don't do enough of the what if type of dreaming, looking foresight, right? We do a lot of, oh, we did this and, we'll just continue to do that. So
I think if you're a nonprofit leader and you're listening to this, or you're somebody who's on a board of directors listening to this, this is exactly what you need to hear too, right? You cannot just go it alone in a vacuum, right? And we talk a lot about on this show that third-party endorsement is exponentially more important than first-party solicitation, where Shannon is just talking about how you're using others to go be a champion on your behalf, even though they expect it from you, but they might not expect it from somebody else or another business who's championing this kind of thing. That's an amazing thing. And the other perspective that you brought up, which is brilliant, is this watershed effect. Yes, you might have an effect immediately on a business or a donor or someone that you serve, but what happens to those who figure it out, or you solve an issue for them, and what happens to their business or their family that doesn't have to worry or doesn't have to or solve the problem? Now their worry is less, that trickles down there. So you're the catalyst for that. And I think that's just a wonderful perspective to have, regardless if you work in a for-profit or a nonprofit in general, is just to always think about what that looks like down the road. And yeah.
I also think, one of the things, sorry if I jumped in front of you, but one of the other things that I find, so I love doing work with nonprofits as well. So lead a lot of board retreats that are not chamber related, right? Just lead board retreats, facilitate conversations. And the biggest, kind of the thing that it frustrates me about nonprofits is there's such a fine, delicate balance between, we want to be really good stewards with the investment dollars, no matter what happens, right? No matter who's investing, no matter whether it's donors, but at the end of the day, I see too many nonprofits not investing in themselves as a leader, as the president of the organization, not being willing to ask. So I'll give a perfect example of this. during our tough economic times when we had an economic decline, one of my chambers that I was running didn't have the budget to send our team members to the national conference and invest in their professional development. And I felt so strongly about this that I really said, okay, we can't do this from a budgetary standpoint, but found a couple of business board members that championed this and really went to them and said, I get it, you donate a lot of money, but in order for our organization to really strive for excellence, we have to invest in ourselves as well. Those companies stepped up and sent our team. But I think it takes the courage. First, it takes recognizing that, but it takes the courage to ask, right? And so, sorry, we're not even on the chamber stuff, because a lot of times what I do, I want it to be less about the chamber and more about the impact that we have. So we're making massive changes at the chamber, like we have a magazine. You're probably aware of the Bridge newsletter magazine. It's about 32 pages. We still print it every month. And it's generally all about the chamber. So I've kind of challenged our team to say, I want us to not only have other people giving testimonials, like you just said, third party kind of saying this is the good about the chamber. I want to write stories about our members and integrate in the common themes of the work that we're doing so that it truly is about our businesses, for our community. So it's a very different approach to kind of this way that we're going to do things in the future.
I love that you said on taking time for self-development. And I love that you need to concentrate on that. And the nonprofit is terrible about that. Some of the reasons why, and I think they're terrified, is that their funding sources, they're either foundation sources or whatever, going to look at it and say, well, that's not programming. That's personal development. It's exactly programming. Because if you don't have your people trained to continue the programming, you're not going to have any programming to fund in the first place. So hell yeah, it's part of the entire plan. You have to do that in order you're not going to have burnout, and then people will quit. And then you've got to find people all over again, which is really one of the toughest things going on right now, which is really one of the most awesome things about your tenure beginning here at as a chamber CEO and president is your obsession, and I love it, with workforce development, because it is the #1 killer of businesses and nonprofits right now. Can't find people and have no idea how to look for them. And it is this black hole of like, what the hell do we do? And there's not a lot of groups that are stepping up and trying to solve that problem. Where did this come from? Where have you seen sort of the growth of this? And what do you think is the opportunity that I think Fargo Moorhead, West Fargo has, but from chamber responsibility to help create a workforce development plan that's really applicable to everybody?
Yeah. So I think the love of it has always been, the reason I'm in this industry is my love for people, right? It was like, I want to figure out how do we provide the best opportunities and experiences for everybody, right? And so I think the interesting piece about the talent conversation right now is that we've had lots of massive shifts in talent. So we went from 10 years ago, same area that we are now, really needing talent, needing to fill bodies. Then we kind of had, as the generations have come, right? Now we have a lot of workforce. Now we need to recruit businesses, right? And we need more businesses in the economy. Well, now with COVID, we were major job shortages to now you see some industries that had to do mass layoffs, right? So now you've got workforce that is not matched from a skill set to the high demand jobs. And so, and then you've got other businesses that these are their best years they've had this last year. And so they're saying, I just did, so I started December 1st. I've done about 75 face-to-face meetings with business leaders so far. Awesome. And what I'm finding is definitely workforce talent is their #1 issue. Without a doubt, I would say all but 2 of them maybe said that, right? I mean, that's literally the conversation. But to me, a few things that have been a little bit shocking is just the wide variety, diverse base of need, right? This is 2-year, 4-year, entry level, professional level. I mean, manufacturer to retail, everyone needs talent right now. So when we talk about the magnitude of this, we have to look at it with a very multi-pronged strategic lens. So we know, for instance, here's some things that I know we should be focusing on here. We have over 35,000 college students in 5 universities in our region. This is a tremendous pipeline, but if we can't connect with these students in a meaningful way to them, not to us, not what we think, but if we can't figure out how to connect them with the social infrastructure as well as career exploration and career connections, we have no chance of keeping them here. So what could a strategic partnership look like differently than it's looked in the past? The other part of this is a numbers game. So even if we retain as many people as we can, we won't have enough. So I was in Bismarck this week and last week. I'm already pushing to say, who leads talent attraction for the state? Who leads talent attraction for the Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo region? What is the brand of this region? What do we want to tell? How do we want to tell our story? Because I'll be the first to tell you, I'm a small town girl from northwestern Wisconsin. I grew up in the Midwest. I'd never been to Fargo until I came here to look for the job. And I was blown away. I had no idea that this was Fargo, right? The media, the movies have not done us justice. So we need to do better at telling that story of what Fargo has to offer in lots of different voices, right? Not just the voice of the chamber president. So talent attraction is another piece. For me, where the chamber can kind of, I believe, so there are lots of people working in the workforce talent space, and lots of people need to work in it from lots of different levels, K-12, post-secondary, active job seekers, dislocated, recently released, incarcerated, you name it, those are all the stakeholder groups, right? So we need to figure out how to better come together. We need to streamline the system, and I don't mean like a job system, I mean the ecosystem. We need to streamline the ecosystem to make it easier for connections to happen. And so you'll hear very soon about a very innovative initiative that we're kicking off called Grow. And this one will have a very robust relationship development piece of it, but it also is fueled by a technology platform that now will be crowdsourced. So we'll have over 1,000 video career cards already populated on that connect to average salary and local universities that provide training and active jobs, 160 different online courses that students or job seekers can take, and it populates automatically to their resume and builds them a badge on the resume. But the most interesting factor, because there's lots of technology platforms out there that do that kind of stuff, right? The piece that no one else has done that I'm super excited about launching here is the connectivity to directly and the scalability of connecting to career exploration activities, experiences, and actual jobs. And so companies you're a dynamic leader, you could go in and you could say, here's my company, and fill out my little profile. But part of it could be, I would be willing to speak in a classroom, have a job shadow, do a site visit of my company, a mentorship, and then also internships. But I think too often we think internship. And the problem with that is lots of companies are not ready for that. And lots of students and job seekers are not ready, or maybe never will be ready for that. So this allows for almost that funnel system or that hub where a company is able to say, yeah, I'd speak in a classroom, and then teachers and job counselors can search for a project manager. And if I'm a project manager, I come up with a list, and they can message directly through the system to try to make that connection. Because right now we have great people that are working, doing that, right? Within the schools, within the colleges, but we don't have a connectivity system that scales this, right? We're trying to do it by hand, which also limits us, or in person, which also limits us to just the social infrastructure that we have. We're not, building upon that. So I could talk your ear off about it. You can tell I'm a little excited, but I think it's going to be iconic for this region. And I'm just now starting to get conversation out there to say, what's the business model for this? How do we support it? Where are the partnerships? We need strategic partners. We can't do this. Like it doesn't work with just a technology platform. It works because people get engaged, they believe in it, and they form relationships. So
the mentorship opportunity there is so crucial. And I think that's where I think even in the nonprofit world, especially, is that you don't really know what goes on within a nonprofit till you get to a nonprofit and you're like, oh crap, this is not exactly what I thought was going to happen in a nonprofit. And so why are you going to do an internship for a certain amount of times where you could be mentored by somebody who is in a leadership position within the nonprofit to get all the questions asked before you even try to dive into something that you don't necessarily, want to do or not motivated by or not excited by. And that's such a great, that would be such a great resource for everybody. That's just so awesome.
You brought up the nonprofits. This is the other thing about that, right? I think that oftentimes nonprofit leadership looks like, who's another nonprofit leader that I can learn from? I will tell you, I have learned more about my career from the private sector leadership than, that nonprofit mentality versus a private sector mentality. Yes, it has to be, what do I have to say? Massaged for the nonprofit world, but the principles are the same, right? Exactly. And so, I totally agree with you. And what I'm hoping is this whole Grow Hub also turns into something what we say, how do we do this even with businesses? How do we do good with more businesses within this realm too?
Well, you're going to match up with personalities that have this is our culture at a business, right? We're looking for like a culture. We're going to hire for talent, maybe not skills. We'll build your skills, but we're going to hire for personality first. And then that becomes, now your culture's better because you hire the right people. You train them. It's easy. Finding the person that fits and matches personalities within the floor or whatever the business structure you're at, completely different. Same thing, especially within the nonprofit world. So I'm really excited about that because I know that in this region, there is such a desperate need for talent of all things. And I'm really stoked about that. And I think people, if you're a nonprofit, you realize you can join the chamber. Like, I think that's something that people maybe not realize. And there are so many advantages to nonprofits who use their chamber membership to its fullest capacity. I don't think a lot of them do. I think they either get a booth at maybe like a business after hours and they're pitching an event and nobody's trying to go to an event because they don't want to get asked for money. What I think nonprofits really need to worry about is who can they bridge and build relationships with at a chamber who can maybe connect them with somebody who desperately needs their services or who they're serving in general. They don't think that way. They think of it, okay, this is an opportunity for me to get sponsorships at my golf tournament. Okay, boring. Nobody wants to do that. They know why you're calling. I've always been intrigued on the nonprofits that use their membership, and maybe they can kind of give some insight on how we can do that a little better, is I want to connect with this person because I know that this person is connected to the group of individuals that we've identified that could be complete, that could be those that we serve. What are nonprofits not doing that you see are great opportunities to join chambers and then use that membership for their own, for the good of their own organization?
So you're great points, and I'm right there with you. I do believe chambers of commerce are phenomenal tools for nonprofits. Most don't realize that. One, we're very affordable as it is relation to kind of connectivity, getting your name out there, visibility, that type of thing. But the piece that I would say is the greatest hidden benefit of being a nonprofit being involved in the chamber is that connectivity and the relationships. And I totally agree with you. People see right through it if someone comes in, gets a booth, or someone comes in and they want the listing of the directory because all I want to do is use it for a calling list, right? So that authenticity is really going to be important in building those relationships. And what we find with this is the members that have the highest level of satisfaction with the chamber are those that are most authentic and are there really because they have found a passion area within the chamber. They are not. So the other thing we're seeing in the Chamber of Commerce world across the country, chambers that are really thriving have made a direct shift from from what's in it for me, here's the direct benefits that you, Patrick, get if you join the chamber, to the greater good approach. And so the chambers that are doing, here are the major initiatives we're working on. We are coming together to solve problems around talent and workforce, around making sure we've got a strong business culture to promote business, around community development and tackling some of the toughest issues like homelessness, poverty, whatever that might be. These might be the areas that the chamber is working on. That's why we want people to pay their $500 a year, right? And so that they can be part of a bigger solution. But we haven't told that story as an organization. That's not the story we've told, right? We tell you, you get more out of it if you show up, and you can get the mailing list, and you can set up a booth, and yes, there are lots of direct benefits that you can get from the organization. But we need to shift the focus on this organization is critical for a vibrant economy, and we want you as a small business, as an entrepreneur, as a nonprofit, you could have impact on that. You can have a voice in that. So it's a very different approach, but I will tell you, it's one that is working all over. It's a big philosophical shift.
I think it's so funny because you could, as a nonprofit, ask for something completely different from money that's more valuable in long term. And that's perspective on how you are perceived as a nonprofit, how other businesses can interact with you, how your message is sent. I mean, there are businesses within the nonprofit or within the chamber that are great at marketing and great at value. They can see this or whatever. If you're not a great marketer of your own business, but you see somebody who is a chamber member, like, hey, I have a question. It's not money related. You do really well in marketing. How do you see us in the community? I don't want to ask for a cash donation. I would like to ask your perspective of how you see us. You're building a bridge and asking them something different than the size of their checking account. And all of a sudden you build a deeper relationship with that person. So the next time that nonprofit or that business leader or that group that you met at the chamber comes up or meets with somebody that fits into your bucket, they're going to think about you first because you didn't ask them for something. You didn't ask for anything in return. You didn't come out with your hand out. You're trying to provide a solution. You're asking them on their expertise, and you're engaging them on something completely different than solicitation. And I think that's what the brilliant gap in those relationship building things that nonprofits are missing the entire time.
Mm-hmm. The number one thing people want to give, they want to give expertise and they want to give advice, right? But what they don't want to do is give a handout, right? So I agree with you. It's not even the financial ask. If I'm a marketing company and I have a nonprofit that comes up to me directly with no relationship and says, do you do any pro bono work, or would you guys work in kind for us? Instead of really, as you've said, so many people want to personally get involved, and they just will be there to answer a question, right? One of the things that I heard from a common theme with numerous businesses, they've asked me, Shannon, is the chamber going to really do more with our second stage companies, helping nonprofits and businesses grow to the next level? And if so, I would like to be a part of that group to advise. And so there's a ton of people that want to do advice. They just never are asked, right? I think we're too humble. We're too scared. We're like, oh, I don't want to show my cards that I don't really know this. But, and the other side of it is, people would respect you more if you're like, I don't really know this. This isn't my sweet spot, but I know that I need to know it if I want to have better organizational excellence. Can you help me? We're just too proud oftentimes to ask for the help.
It's that Midwest sensibilities that's adorable in some cases and then outstandingly frustrating in others. And then speaking of Midwest, since you are a Midwest gal at heart, I have a question that I bet nobody has asked you since.
Yes, I'm a diehard Packer fan. Was that it?
No, that's gross. That's gross.
I see the Viking behind you. So yes.
That's terrible and gross. I have a mixed marriage. My wife is a Packers fan too, so I know how to deal with this.
That's us too. My husband's a Packer or a Viking fan, and I'm a Packer fan. So there you go. We could hang out together. I like your wife already.
Yep, done. It's
perfect.
Great. My question has to do with beer.
Oh.
I'm wondering if you can sing the Oconto beer theme song, since you were a Northwest Wisconsin gal.
No,
Good,
I can't.
That would age you several years. Like, that's way too old.
Can you sing that?
No, but my wife's family's from Oconto, and I feel like I needed to mention Oconto in a podcast at some point in 101.
I am now going to try to look up that song and see if I can find it. So
Now I'm going to send it.
I thought you were going to ask me to sing the Hams commercial or like the Leinenkugel's jingle or something. But
we like the outside of the box ones, like Oconto beer, which seems to be random.
All right, then. Okay.
I am so glad that we got to have a conversation. I am so glad that people are going to listen to this. And if you're a nonprofit, there are so many nuggets of information that you're going to be able to take away, not only to use your chamber membership correctly, and if you're not a chamber member, do it and use it better than most people do. But the idea of disruption, not for the sake of disruption, but actually doing it because there's a purpose behind it, and some really great tips on how to be self-aware of what you are disrupting and how to address that. I think it's such wonderful information from if you're a leader, whether you're in business or a nonprofit anyway. And I'm just so appreciative of this wonderfully fresh perspective that's going to be brought to our business community. And I'm super excited to have you on as the season 3, first episode of season 3 guest. Shannon Full, thank you so much for being a guest on the official Do Good Better podcast. But if somebody wants to get a hold of you, they've got an idea, they've got something that they have a question about, they think that you're super cool and want to chat with you as well, how on earth would they get a hold of you?
Well, so first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I hope that I have this opportunity again in the future. How to get a hold of me, and I will honestly say, I want to hear from you. So I don't, member or non-member, it doesn't really matter. I mean, one of the things I'm hearing from some of our nonprofits is, and I really would lean into this if this was something that people wanted, was a nonprofit peer group to do a little bit more best practice and brainstorming. Happy to facilitate it, happy to have it, whether you're a member or not, I don't really care, right? So my email address is sfull, so just like Shannon, sfull, F-U-L-L, at FMWF, so Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo, chamber.com, the same website, FMWFchamber.com. That's the best way to get me. I am not even shy. People call me on my cell phone. I can give you that if you really want it. I mean, that's how accessible I am. So just reach out and you find me on Facebook, find me on LinkedIn. You'll see all of that as well. So.
We'll drop all that information in the show notes per always. So make sure that you do say hi, say welcome, and get to know Shannon, because she's going to be a game changer here. And I'm super excited. And I volunteer as tribute as part of that nonprofit group that you're going to start calling. I volunteer to train. Call me.
Nice. Awesome. Well, sounds great.
I appreciate you. Appreciate the time today. Thanks so much for being a guest on here, the official Do Good Better podcast.